good start to the day. We've got a couple of commissioners missing today. Kevin is up in Tallahassee, Cecil is somewhere on the planet, and so we have Mo, Larry, and Curly here, the three of us, and something like this. And so, we'll get through this, so we'll move forward. First of all, I'd like to do the invocation. Is the pastor here? Oh, there he is. Okay. Pastor, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. You should let all of us in on the blue memo, by the way. That would be good. God, we thank you for today. I thank you for each one of those that are going to be making decisions today that have the capacity to impact our whole region. And I ask that you give them wisdom as they make those decisions. Not only that, I ask that you bless them and their families. And Lord, today we pray as you taught us to pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we thank you for that. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks very much. The pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First order of business is annual reorganization of the board, and I wanted to tee this up just a little bit. When I was also vice chair of the BOCC, I had to think about what the year was going to look like for me, and one of my incorporated areas is Fort Myers Beach. And so I had a very difficult task in front of me, as the whole board did. Got a new council down, a new mayor, some new council members. And so I went to the board and said, look, I'd rather step aside for this. I need to focus on, that portion of the business and also the Horizon Council and building back our business. So the board was kind enough to accept that, and Brian became the chair. And so I'd like to see him moving that along in the same vein. So Melissa's going to do this as standing in for Kevin this morning.
Good morning, commissioners and ASMC members. I am Melissa Butler, Minutes Deputy Clerk, and I'm stepping in for our clerk and court comptroller, Kevin Carnes. He wanted to be here, but unfortunately he is in Tallahassee attending Legislative Week, so I will present and conduct the election for the Port Authority Board Chair in his absence. This is the annual reorganization of the Board of Port Commissioners. Any commissioner may nominate a commissioner to serve as chair, including themselves. As a reminder, nominations do not require a second, but we do need a vote to close nominations and a roll call vote for each nomination. The floor is now open for nominations for chair.
I would like to nominate Brian Hammond. Nobody runs a meeting as smoothly as he does, and he's been a good friend for a long time. So
Thank you, Commissioner. We don't have to second, right? No,
Any other
no second.
nominations?
This is, I'll move, we close nominations.
sounds good to me. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. And is there a to close nominations?
Yeah, I
Yes.
move we close
He closed.
nominations.
I
And
second.
Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Great.
Okay, I have a motion to close nominations and will now call for the voice votes for election for chair. Please signify by voting yea or nay. Commissioner Sandelli,
Yay.
Commissioner Hammond,
Yes.
and Commissioner Greenlaw.
Yay.
Okay, congratulations,
Thank you very much.
Chairman Hammond.
Want to switch
The
seats? or
meeting
you-
is now yours to vote for vice chair.
You might remember that when I sat in my first meeting, 19, which it took me a day to find the building after. I got through the first meeting, having no idea what was going on, and Frank Mann was at the other end of the dice. And Frank says, "Oh, we have one more point of business." He says, "New Mr. Commissioner," he said, "you have the opportunity to be the chairman." What I wanted to say was, "That's great. I just found this chair, and I'm lucky I found that." And I said, "I think that Brian runs a great meeting. I'll defer to Brian because I was watching him and he's stepping through this thing." And so this is not the first time I picked on him. So anyhow,
Thank you
congratulations.
very much. Thank you, Ray. Well, first of all, before we jump into the election of vice chairman, I just want to say thank you so much, Commissioner Sandelli, for your nomination. I want to thank you, Commissioner Greenwald, as well, and thank my other colleagues who couldn't be with us today because they're on very important business for the county, for the opportunity to serve as chairman this year. It's an important year for all of us. We're going to do a great work together as a team to bring this county back this year to the functional paradise that we all know it can be, and together with everybody in this room, we're going to make it even better than it was pre-storm. So thank you for the opportunity. At this time, let's go ahead and proceed with the nominations of our vice chairman. So I'll open the floor for nominations for vice chairman.
I'll nominate Mike Greenwell.
Okay, Commissioner Greenwell has been nominated. Do I have a motion to close nominations?
Motion to close.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Greenwell to close nominations and a second from Commissioner Sandelli. Is there any objection to that motion? Seeing no objection, nominations are now closed. And we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Commissioner Sandelli, how do you vote, yay or nay? Yay on Commissioner Greenwell. Commissioner
Yay.
Greenwell votes yay, and the chair votes yes as well. So it is unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Growing up a Yankee fan, voting for a Red Sox player. My mother's turning over in her grave today.
Well, congratulations, Mr. Vice
So
Chairman.
this spring training, we're gonna have him wear a Red Sox jersey.
Off field. I have two jerseys that are hanging in the guest room closet. I can't put them on my closet.
Love that. Well, very good. Well, at this time, what a great way to start the meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask for public comment on the consent agenda and administrative agenda items. This will be the one time for public comment for the meeting today. Would you raise your hand if anyone's come to speak in public comment today? And we'll call you forward to the podium. Okay, last chance. Going once, going twice, sold. We will close public comment at this time. And Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any items to pull for discussion?
I do not.
Commissioner Sandelli?
No.
Okay, I have no items to pull off the consent agenda for discussion. Do we have a motion to approve the balance?
A motion to approve the
I'll
balance.
second.
Okay, the motion for approval is from Commissioner Greenwell, and the second is from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion on that? Are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, at this time, we'll take up the administrative agenda, and I'll recognize our executive director to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 9 is request the board approve the fiscal year rates and charges for the International Airport, and I asked Mr. McGonigal to cover the item for us. Thank you.
Very good, you're recognized, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you. Brian McGonigal. Yeah, item number 9 is our annual recalculation of rates and charges. This is where we compare what we budgeted to what the actuals were. It was a fantastic year, fiscal year '22. We started with significant month-to-month increases in passengers over the prior year. Started to slow down a little bit in May, but the fiscal year ended with 11.1 million passengers, our biggest fiscal year ever, and 2.7 million passengers over our projections. So it was pretty significant. We're glad to see that. As a result of the increase in passenger traffic, total non-airline revenues came in at 88 million, 23 million over budget. That was 20 of it was only in 3 categories. Rental cars came in at 33 million, which was 5 million over budget. The parking lot came in at 21 million, another 5 million over budget. And concessions and restaurant sales, we were watching it all year long, and it was just taking off as passengers, no pun intended, took off. So that was 3 million over budget. So just those 3 categories was 20 million of our increase in revenue. On the expense side, real quickly, the departments had the green light to spend all their operating budget. Similar to last year, we had some supply chain issues, second year in a row. So we had trouble getting some equipment in, some vehicles in. So we spent 90% of our budget. We usually spend about 95 to 97, but they had, and we are also very fortunate to, for the 3rd year in a row, we got Carissa and CARES money to supplement the budget, and we put 14 million in the budget to offset debt and operating expenses. So we're very fortunate that we got that money. We have 2 more years of our CARES money to spend. So when you compare what we charge the airlines all year, we charged them a landing fee of $2.42. The actual came in at $2.17. We charged them a rental rate of $99. It came in at 86. And as a result, our cost per EP came in at $4. I believe that is the lowest it ever has been. We budgeted 7, it came in at 4. So as a result, when you take revenues minus expenses, we get what we call net funds remaining, which is 24 million. Per our agreement, we get 60%, the airlines get 40%. The airlines, we're going to be getting close to 15 million, and the airlines will be getting 9.8 million. The auditors are done. They finished their review. They agree with these numbers, and with your approval today, we'll issue checks to the airlines.
Very good. Commissioners, do we have any questions at all? Only question, Mr. McGonigal, I had as we were thinking about this is, so you mentioned the part about where the 90% of the budget was spent on the expenditure side.
Yep.
Are there any adjustments that need to be made to this year's budget to help facilitate anything that wasn't able to be purchased and brought in during last
Yes,
budget year?
we do have a budget amendment that was on the consent to finish buying the vehicles that didn't come in. So we did have to do a budget amendment. It's on the consent item.
Very good. Okay.
So, and we can afford it, so.
So we'll see those and manage those as they come along
Yes,
then.
yeah, hopefully we're gonna get them all in. Yep.
Very good. All right, thanks. Well, if there's no further discussion and no further questions, then I'll go ahead and ask, does anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Greenwell.
Second.
Seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. Any further discussion? Are there
Pretty
any-
impressive numbers.
Yeah, very impressive numbers. Absolutely. Very good. All right, seeing no further discussion then, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 10.
Item number 10 is request the board approve a fourth amendment to the airline use agreement with United Airlines, and I'd ask Mr. McGonigal to explain the item, please.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, this one, United Airlines is adding space behind the ticket counter, and they're also adding space underneath Concourse C. It requires this amendment.
Very good.
So
Any questions,
we're
Commissioner?
happy to do that for them.
Okay. Seeing no questions, then, does somebody wish to make a motion?
Make a motion?
Okay, motion for approval from Commissioner Sandelli.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Greenwell. Any further discussion? Seeing none, are there any objections? No objections, motion carries unanimously. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 11.
Item number 11 is an amendment to the use agreement with Delta Airlines, and I would ask Mr. McGonigal to explain that item as well.
Yeah, and similar to the prior one, Delta Airlines is adding curbside space where you check in your luggage. It's a real small area. And we're also addressing in this lease the closure of gate C2. It is closed now because of construction. We put the language in this agreement to protect them and charge them accordingly. So it requires an amendment to their lease.
Very good. Questions, Commissioners? Anybody have a question? All right, seeing no questions, does somebody wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Greenwell, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Any further discussion? Seeing none, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, Mr. Siegel, item number 12, please.
Item number 12 is request the board approve an agreement with Host International for retail and food and beverage concession at the International Airport, and I'd ask Mr. McGonigal to explain that item.
Yeah, thank you. Since the terminal opened in 2005, Host has been the primary food and beverage operator, and retail has been and Parodies has been the primary retail operator. Now with the terminal expansion project now in progress, we're going to increase the footprint significantly of our concession area with the consolidation of the checkpoints. As previously endorsed by the board, staff's plan is to retain Host and Parodies and extend them out to 2035. Parodies already went to the board in September. This is Host. Similarly, same term, same exact term. We negotiated this term. At the end, Host will have approximately 25,000 square feet of retail, of food and beverage, and one retail unit. So it's going to be a significant footprint. And like I said, the term will run to 2035, and the payments to us will average between 12 and 20%, depending on the unit. So we did, and I failed to mention that there is a third package, a hybrid package, if you recall, and that's on the street, which is coming in at the end of the month. So you'll see that in the next couple of months. So
Any questions, commissioners? on this item?
No, it's gonna be exciting with the expansion and some new venues and so on and so forth, so it'll just add to the overall piece of this. It's great, thanks.
Good. Very good. At this time, does somebody wish to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Sandelli,
I will second.
second from Commissioner Greenwell. Gets pretty predictable when there's only three of us now. Very good. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 13.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Item 13 is requesting the board approve a recognition agreement with Avco, RSW Cargo LLC, and I'll ask Mr. McGonigal to explain that item.
yes, Avco is building the air freight building. It's going to break ground any day now. In November, we did a First Amendment to expand the build. They wanted to build a bigger building, which we're happy to do that. All we're doing here is in Article 7, they cannot get a lease without our consent. Excuse me, they can't get a mortgage without our consent. So they're seeking lending, and we're going to, they need our consent. We're fine with all the terms. And Mr. Chair, Mark Trank has some documents for you to sign after the meeting. Right, Mark? So,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
All right. All right, thank you. Any questions, commissioners, on this item? Okay, seeing no questions, does somebody wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion for
I'll second.
approval from Commissioner Greenwell and the seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. Any further discussion? Are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Item number 14, Mr. Siegel.
Yes, thank you. Item 14 requests the board amend the lease with the Department of Financial Services over at the Pagefield North Building, and I'll ask Brian to explain that item as well.
Yeah, the Florida Department of Financial Services has been a tenant at Pagefield since 2003 in the former terminal building. They have one more extension for 5 more years. They've opted to do it, so they're a great tenant. We're going to keep them there, and the rent is going for the next 5 years, currently going from $13,000 a month to $14,900 a month.
Any questions, commissioners? on this? No? Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion for approval from
I'll
Commissioner Sandelli, and second is from Commissioner Greenwell. Any further discussion?
Can I, just real quick, you put some very impressive numbers there for RSW Pagefield. Just a quick overview of how we're doing that there activity-wise.
Sure. Pagefield last year, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Sure.
Pagefield last year had an outstanding year as well. Specifically on the numbers, Brian, if you want to.
The
just
gallons, Pete, you know off the top of your head, it was 3? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. It was significant. I mean, they had 2 years in a row record. They did not beat 21, but 22. 21 was gangbusters, but they had a great year. The net revenues were strong. It was the strongest year. They did great.
Good, well,
I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers.
that's
in front of
okay.
me,
I
but-
mean, if we're moving in the right direction, like the second piece always to me is then are we doing the things that will help support increased activity, whether it's fuel, hangars, so on and so forth. It's gonna be an important part of it.
And you'll see in the workshop, we've got a huge hangar project
Thanks, Brian.
getting ready to go. So,
Excellent, very good. Well, we have a motion and a second, and if there's no further discussion, then I'll call the question. Are there any objections to the motion? All right, seeing none, then that motion carries unanimously. All right, Mr. Siegel, item number 15, please.
Yes, thank you. Item 15 requests the board approve a contract with Alliance Insurance Services for insurance brokerage services. And if you don't think Brian's been busy, obviously he has been, because I explained this item as well.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, we advertised an RFP back in April of '22 for insurance brokerage services. We had presentations for 2 firms. The board in September endorsed Alliant as the #1 firm and endorsed us to move forward with contract negotiations. This is it. This is a professional service agreement. It's 5 years, and it's $78,000 per year. And Alliant does a really good job for us. They shop around and get all our lines of insurance, so we're happy that we have them.
Very good. Any questions, commissioners? Did you try Jake from State Farm?
We did not, no.
No? Okay.
He did.
I can't help myself. All right. Do we have a motion? Motion for approval from Commissioner Sandali.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Greenwell.
That was a good one.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. I worked on it all night. Very good. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 16.
Number 16 is request the board approve the performance reviews for myself, and I'll have Brian McGonigal just briefly introduce the item.
Yeah, if I could, I'm just going to briefly read this. The executive director's annual salary, as you know, will be adjusted annually to reflect merit increases of no less than 4% and up to 6% of the current salary, or an amount equal to any across-the-board increase provided to all Port Authority employees, whatever is greater. The executive director has not received any other across-the-board adjustments or cost of living adjustments received by other employees during the past year.
Very good. So at this time, it would be appropriate for board discussion. Does somebody wish to make a motion then? We do need to determine between 4% and 6%.
I would, first of all, Ben, you've done a great job. I think one of the concerns for me, one of my first meetings was, improving communications, between the board and everybody else. I think you've done a great job with that. On top of communicating, you had a lot of stuff to communicate because we had a bunch of issues. I think we're moving in the right direction in large part because of you. I would like to make a motion to increase at the top end at 6%.
Very good. So we have a motion for 6% from Commissioner Sandeli.
I will second.
Second from Commissioner Greenwell. Do we have any further discussion on this item? Just wanted to echo Commissioner Sandeli's comments as well. Ben, what a great year. When you look at the financial results, just speak for themselves. They're fantastic. But to see the way you and your team have worked together to manage through the challenges of a hurricane, of still the tail end of the pandemic, and everything else related to just the increased volume here. I mean, we had 11.1 million passengers. That's amazing to see that number come through the airport. And you managed it smoothly through cancellations, through peak season, through everything. So I appreciate, it's a reflection of you and the whole team. So appreciate all the work that you guys have done.
Chairman, if I may also, I want to also say, I really appreciate the communication that you give us directly, which, when things are going on at the airport that we might be unaware of. So I really appreciate that, and hopefully we continue.
Of course.
Yeah.
I have one more comment because I love stories. Anybody ever been to Dolly's in Bonita Springs? It's a great little restaurant, so on and so forth.
Pie place.
So I'm talking to her this past year, and she's going to go someplace, and she makes these pies, and her brother was sick. She says, Commissioner, can you help me, with this? I said, I know the guy who can. So I call Ben. I said, Ben, I'm going to put Dolly on the phone, see if you can help her out. So he does. She goes on this trip carrying these pies and stuff like that. She goes, I got down there. TSA was like, the pies are here. Bring them down. And stuff like that. She goes, I love that guy. I said, well, he is married. But, the only reason I say that is not to be, is that we talk about numbers, we talk about fuel, we talk about passengers, so on and so forth. The culture of this community is things like that. When you can pick up the phone and do something for somebody, and Ben, thank you for that. I don't think I got a free pie out of it, but I'm going to call that.
I didn't get to taste any.
But thank you. The small things as well as the large stuff. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yeah,
I'd just like to say thank you. Very honored and grateful for the recognition today, and it's a privilege working for the board. And obviously, two other commissioners aren't here, and I'll have to make sure I let them know that. But it doesn't happen without an amazing team. I'm just one person here, obviously, and we just have an amazing staff, and appreciate your support because we can't go anywhere without that. And it's really an amazing place to work and be part of. So I just want to tell you thank you for that. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, then seeing no further comments, are there any objections to the motion? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, please introduce item number 17, Mr. Siegel.
Item number 17 is request the board award and purchase of delivery of four Ford E450 ADA passenger shuttle buses, and I'd ask Mr. Hennigan to explain that item for us, please.
Good morning. For the record, Stephen Hennigan. Agenda item 17 is a request for board to approve the purchase of 4 ADA passenger shuttle buses from Creative Bus Sales for $527,000. These would be received no later than September 30th of 2023, and this purchase would allow us to replace our 4 existing ADA buses that are currently reaching end of useful life.
Very good. Commissioners, do you have any questions on this? No? Anybody wish to make a motion? Motion for approval from Commissioner Sandelli,
I will second.
second from Commissioner Greenwell. All right, any further discussion on that item? All right, seeing none, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 18.
Item number 18 is request the board approve the purchase of 18 new patrol vehicles utilizing 2 separate contracts. And again, I'd like to ask Mr. Hennigan to explain that item.
All right, Administrative Agenda 18, request board approve the purchase of the 18 new patrol vehicles for the Airport Police Department, piggybacking 2 separate contracts. The first is the Florida Sheriff's Association contract with Garber Ford, and the second contract is a Lee County contract through Sam Galloway Ford. The total cost is $1,727,000 plus a 10% contingency for a total cost not to exceed of approximately $1.9 million if the contingency funds are needed.
Very good. Commissioners, do you have any questions at this time?
No.
Okay, seeing none, does somebody wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, very good.
Second.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Greenwell, and the second is from Commissioner Sandelli. Any further discussion? Seeing none, are there any, we have a comment from
Well,
our,
this is just where you miss Frank.
there you go.
He'd be telling us about his old Ford, right?
Yeah.
Stuff out there and how much it cost him, and
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you got the maximum out of it that you could get. And so,
Yeah.
you know, you just gotta carry that on.
Thank you for keeping the memory alive, and that's a great point. You know, on behalf of Commissioner Mann, does anybody know the mileage of the ones?
I knew you'd get right up on it.
There you go, thanks.
They will be close to 0.
Yeah, very good. Well, and that's exciting. Commissioner Mann always talked about his 300,000 miles on his
That's
truck.
right. That's
Truck,
right.
absolutely. Well, thank you for bringing that memory up.
Well, no problem. I'm certain I'll get to know my other appointee, Commissioner Greenwell, so I can keep his tradition going on while I'm still here, right?
Well, I do have one thing to say about it if I can.
Yes, sir. You're right.
Chairman, no GMCs, no Chevrolet. We're Ford people here.
You know, right now,
Well, I would just
we'll
like.
take anything we can get.
Yeah,
because
I
it's
would
very
like to bring it to
difficult.
everyone's attention. If you would ride downtown and
Yeah.
past the chambers, you will notice that there are 4 beautiful cars sitting there and 1 truck. That would be my truck.
Your truck.
Absolutely.
I think me and Frank have something in common.
Yeah.
You do.
There you go.
Get that going.
I love that. Well, thank you very much. If there's no further discussion then on that, I'll call the question. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Siegel, please introduce item number 19.
Item number 19 is requesting board accept the state grant for $1.8 million, and I would ask Emily Underhill to briefly explain that item.
Good morning. For the record, Emily Underhill. Item 14 requests, item 19 requests acceptance of a grant from the Florida Department of Transportation in the amount of $1,880,893 to provide funding towards the new RSW Air Traffic Control Tower. This brings FDOT's participation to date to $26.3 million. So staff is recommending acceptance of this grant.
Very good. Any questions, commissioners, at this time? All right, seeing no questions, does anybody wish to make a motion?
I'll make the motion on this one.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Sandelli.
Ironically, I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Greenwell. That never happens. You're right. Very good. Any further discussion on that item? Any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right. Mr. Siegel, item number 20, please.
Yes, sir. Item 20 is requesting the board accept a state grant from the Florida Department of Transportation for $2.5 million. And Emily, if you could explain that item as well.
Yes. Item 20 requests acceptance of a grant from the Florida Department of Transportation in the amount of $2.5 million to provide funding towards new hangars and a ramp rehab, as well as a ramp expansion at Page Field. This brings FDOT's participation to date to $3,025,000. So staff is recommending acceptance of this grant.
Thank you very much. Any questions, commissioners? No, Commissioner Sandelli, absolutely right here. Great point that you made earlier about the hangars needed at Page Field. Looks like we're accepting a really nice grant here to help make that work happen. So, very good. Does somebody wish to make a motion at this time?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion for approval from Commissioner Greenwell and second from Commissioner Sandelli. Any further discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously, and that concludes our administrative agenda. At this time, I'd like to call on commissioners for commissioner items. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have anything that you'd like to discuss this morning?
Do not.
No? Commissioner Sandelli, anything you'd like to discuss?
The only thing I'd like to bring up is, we had a tough year last year. Probably no one has a tougher one than maybe Fran, who sits on this board here. So, lost her business, her home, friends, and recently her husband. So, keep her in your prayers, and she's one of the best of who we are. So I just wanted to make note of that.
Here, absolutely. Fran's a wonderful person, has done a tremendous amount for our community, and I appreciate that recognition. Very good. I have no items to discuss this morning. Are there any appointments? Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any appointments?
I do not.
I have none. None? Okay, very good. At this time, we will turn to the Airport Special Management Committee, to the chair, and ask if there are any comments.
I would just like to, on behalf of our committee, express our condolences to Fran for the loss of her husband. And as Commissioner Sandelli has said, she's been a member of the community for years, well-respected, well-loved, not only in Fort Myers Beach, but throughout Greene County. That's where I grew up, Lee County. She's been a valued member of this committee. She's stayed, for 25 plus years.
It's over 30, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and which is amazing. And the work that she does on other committees are outstanding. So we're sorry for her, but we're looking forward to working with her the rest of the year too. And I'd also like to add on behalf of the committee our thanks to the staff and our appreciation of all the efforts that they have put in this very difficult year. And second, the comments again of Commissioner Sandelli regarding communications from our executive director. He keeps us very well informed, along with his staff. And it makes it very easy for this committee to move along, to bring recommendations to you because of that effort. And I wish everybody a very happy new year. And do any of our members have other comments? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have one more comment on Fran. I went down the beach, took my wife. I wanted her to see this. This during the holidays. And the only thing left was this little block building out front. And there was probably 4 or 5 people there. They were decorating it. And I took a couple pictures and I thought, you know, as much devastation, people come together and rally around that point of her, not only for the property as it was, but for Fran and what she meant to those communities down there.
Very good.
Thanks.
Yeah, she absolutely does amazing things for our community, and we wish her the very best. I know she's not far, and she actually answers the phone if you give her a call, and I'm sure she'd appreciate any thoughts and prayers and calls too. Okay, very good. At this time, then we'll move to the report of the executive director.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have very brief comments, and then we'll move into our workshop on our capital improvement plan. Just very pleased to report that during December, we had 862,368 passengers that traveled through the international airport. This was a decrease of 20.6% compared to December of 2021. However, it did push us to a new annual record for a calendar year of 10,343,802 passengers, which was an increase of just more than 21,000 travelers compared to 2021. So we did break a record on a calendar year basis as well, just barely. With the final passenger numbers in for December, RSW finished 2022 as the 38th largest airport in terms of passenger traffic in the U.S. We do have some new markets that will be starting in February. On February 3rd, American Airlines will add daily service to Austin, Texas, which has been a real hot market, and we're real excited about that. Also on February 3rd, Avelo Airlines will start twice weekly service to Wilmington, Delaware. And then on February 16th, we'll add twice weekly service to Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. And that's really all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything for me. So.
Any questions for our executive director at this time?
Thanks again, Ben.
Very good. At this time, we'll move to the port attorney. Any items?
No, sir. Thank you.
Nothing to report. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I'll call for public comment on other matters that were not on the agenda today. Has anyone come to speak in public comment on any items related to the airport? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Mr. Executive Director, for the meeting, is there any other business before us?
No, sir.
All right, at this time, we'll adjourn the Board of Port Commissioners meeting, and we do have a workshop. Do you want to take a 5-minute break in between now and the workshop, or do you want to just go straight through?
I'm fine with going straight through. Good.
All right, so we'll go ahead and adjourn the Port Authority meeting and call to order the workshop for the Lee County Port Authority and Board of Port Commissioners.
Great.
Mr. Siegel, I'll allow you to introduce the workshop.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So today we are just asking the board to review our capital improvement program that's been updated for you. Last time that we had a public workshop regarding this capital improvement program was this time last year. And we'd like to discuss several projects on our capital improvement program in a little more detail than others, but I do want to remind you that you'll see a long list of projects, and please feel free to ask us any questions about any of these other projects. We're not going to go through all of them. We're just going to highlight some of them for you. And with that, I'd like to just ask Mr. Fisher, our Deputy Executive Director, to take it from here.
Morning. Good morning. For the record, Mark Fisher. As been mentioned at this morning's workshop, similar to prior years about this time, we'd like to discuss our capital improvement plan. With your feedback and input today, we'll incorporate the CIP project and cost into our preparation of our fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget that you'll see later this year. So for this morning's workshop, we'll touch on RSW current and future passenger counts and projections, highlight some of the staff recommended projects that you will likely see moving forward or see as agenda items over the next upcoming fiscal year, and an overview of our CIP for both airports, and then Brian is going to come up and talk a little bit about how we try to plan to pay for all of it. So first for the forecast, the RSW passenger forecast this board and the FAA have approved looking at the next 20 years. We still feel comfortable with the current forecast based on what we know today. Those forecasts project a little over 5 million enplanements, which equates to 10 million total passengers for calendar year 2022. And as Ben mentioned in his comments, we came in around 5.1, just a little over. So that was really good considering the impacts resulting from Hurricane Ian and airline weather problems over the holidays. By or before 2026, we still think we will be close to 6 million enplanements, or a total of 12 million total passengers arriving and departing RSW. Here are the objectives that we use each year when developing our CIP. As we note, when we have these meetings each year, our CIP is greatly dependent on grants from FAA, FDOT, TSA, and other agencies, as well as other user fees, such as passenger facility and customer facility charge revenues, which all have their own set of eligibility requirements and regulations and restrictions. Not all airport projects are eligible for these funds, so many times the availability of other agency-approved funding for certain projects help that project advance and sometimes leapfrog projects satisfy other objectives that can only be paid for using Port Authority funds. We've been highly successful in securing other funding for capital projects, and we need to continue to be in order to keep the cost of doing business at RSW low for our airline business partners. This is a snapshot of our overall capital improvement plan. It's a hefty number, $1.5 billion. And being able to afford that overall number has influence on some of the recommendations you'll hear today. In a moment, I'll highlight some of the bigger projects And then later, I'd be happy to answer any questions about any project contained on the CIP. This is also a snapshot of Page Field, our Page Field CIP, which stands at nearly $80 million, bringing the total Lee County Port Authority CIP to over $1.6 billion. We have about $392 million worth of projects that are currently underway. The RSW terminal expansion, consolidating the security checkpoint into a single location and adding new concession areas is under construction, but running behind schedule at this point with about 2 years to go. We are actively working with the board-selected construction manager and general contractor Manhattan on a recovery plan to still get the new checkpoint open before Thanksgiving of 2024. And after 3 prior public outreach efforts and board workshops will be coming to you in June with the final draft of the RSW Master Plan update that's been going on for about 2 years. And we'll be requesting board approval to transmit that document to the FAA and FDOT for approval. And at board meetings last fall, you approved construction contracts to realign and rehabilitate Chamberlain Parkway on the north side of RSW, as well as add 81 hangars as part of the FMY South Quad Hangars and Ramp project. Both of those projects are now under construction. So getting to a couple of the larger projects containing our CIP first, Concourse E. The board approved a design contract for a new Concourse E in May of last year. The target identified in our master plan was to design a facility to handle peak hour traffic in March of 2036, which equates to facilities needed to support 14 additional gates, shown here, shown here in the yellow boundary. With the target construction of the Concourse C to be done in 2027, giving the new Concourse 9 years of peak month capacity before additional airline gates are forecast to be needed. As we explained during our master plan workshops, this is a very high and expensive bar. It's peak hour of the peak month, 13 years out. So as we began the design, our objectives were to satisfy that peak time, March 2036 passenger and aircraft demand, while providing a new concourse at the lowest cost possible, while still giving our passengers a high level of service based on current industry standards. And we want the new concourse to be seamlessly blend with the existing terminal experience. And of course, the new terminal will include a 5,000 to 7,000 foot VIP lounge and connectivity between all concourses for anyone using any of the TSC checkpoints to be able to go to any gate. Now that the project is at the 30% design milestone, the early analysis has determined some higher than expected costs on the project. One of these is the airside component, taxiways and ramp needed to support the ultimate 19-gate concourse layout. These are driven by FAA requirements and is still quite a bit more than originally expected in order to have aircraft not waiting on the tarmac because of peak congestion. Another element that was higher than expected is the need for additional terminal footprint to support the initial 14 and ultimately the 19 gates for Concourse C. As space is driven by function, it has to be so wide and so long to handle the space needed for TSA checkpoint lanes, airline ticket counters, ticket lobby, and ADA ramps leading from the terminal level to the concourse level for both concourses E and D. So the box is driven by function without a lot of wiggle room. And the same applies to the lower level of the main terminal area. Bag claim devices, airline bag makeup units, and the outbound TSA bag system drive the size of the bread box, which needs to be larger than expected. The concourse itself at the 30% design level is pretty straightforward. It has to be so long to handle plane-to-plane wingtip clearances parked at each gate. And the current design keeps costs low as possible by reducing interior square footage, while at the same time matching current industry level of service standards, which still provides 23% more holdroom space, 55% more restroom space, and 109% more concession space than we currently have in our existing concourses. So what this all means is the cost has gone up. Lots of modeling and analysis have been done as part of the early design that says in order for the terminal to function like we want, we need a bigger main terminal footprint, larger airside taxiways and ramp, an expanded chiller building, and third-level pedestrian walkways between the parking garage and the new ticket lobby. This, combined with the current state of supply chain and worker shortages and material costs, means a higher projected cost escalation through the term of the construction. All equates to, at the 30% design milestone, about $150 million more in the cost estimate. So we've worked with the design team to come up with a revised phasing plan that will still accomplish our master plan objectives while helping the cash flow associated with our overall CIP. We propose to phase the project with phase 1 involving a concourse to handle March 2031 demand, or 8 gates, and phase 2 involving a project to handle March 2036 demand, or an additional 6 gates. With this revised approach, we still hit our target design of having 14 gates for March 2036, just spreading the costs out to offer us better cash flow in order to accomplish other projects within our overall CIP. The 8-gate concourse is still going to be a beautiful statement project. This is an early rendering of coming into the new Concourse E atrium, an atrium similar to what you see on the current terminal, with the entrance to the new TSA checkpoint there on the left, right past the flight information display screens. This is a view of the new ultimate 9-lane TSA checkpoint looking from the atrium towards the concourse. Slide 20 is a view of the new TSA checkpoint looking from the concourse back towards the atrium. And slide 21, this is a view of the new concessions courtyard once passengers go through the TSA checkpoint before entering the actual new concourse. It's another view of the concessions courtyard. And here's a passenger view of a passenger sitting in the concession courtyard looking down towards Concourse E. And slide 24 is within the new concourse. Again, this is just a 30% design. These will be a lot more detailed, a lot more colorful as the design progresses, but as you can see, it's still going to be a beautiful project even at 8 gates. So unless the board needs further information or discussion, staff's plan is to rephase the project under the current design contracts previously approved by the board, while still accomplishing the 2036 target objective identified as part of the draft master plan update. Unless there's any discussion or questions?
Questions on this part, Commissioner?
No, just a comment. I had the pleasure of going through Atlanta a couple times over the holidays, and we had a lot of discussion about a centralized TSA checkpoint, and went back and forth, and does that work and stuff. I will tell you, I was impressed about the amount of people that they can put through that centralized program up in Atlanta, and so it works. It was good to see it in live. So thanks for that.
Good idea. I was going to ask real quick, you know, certainly I think all of us are concerned about making sure the passenger experience is a good one. So we're still under construction on the terminal expansion, and then we're going to roll into construction on Terminal E. Could you just kind of give us set the expectation for what's it going to be like as a passenger coming to RSW? Are you going to feel like you're just in a perpetual state of construction for the next 10 years, or how will that affect your experience?
Yeah, no, sir. Over the next 2+ years, what you just said is going to come to fruition. We're just embarking on some of the more challenging phases of the terminal expansion. So there'll be as you see at many airports when you travel, you'll be going to detours. You'll be going through construction areas. It'll all be safe, but it just won't look pretty as much as it currently does. When that current terminal expansion project is done, this Concourse C will be off to the side. So really, passengers shouldn't really have a lot of inconvenience other than the roadway system. We are going to be expanding the roadway system out front as part of a Concourse C. So the roadway system, when they're in their vehicles, is going to have a lot of detour, as you see around town when they're building roads. But the concourse is almost a greenfield project that will be connected to Concourse C. So that 3-year construction will be out of passenger traveling.
And then when you do the second phase of the new terminal, it'll have, or the new concourse, which is like a mini terminal. That's kind of why I'm calling it that. But so that'll be added on to the end. So again, really won't cause a lot of detours or obstruction or interruption to the passenger experience then?
Exactly. No. The main terminal building, the function of the ticketing and the bag claim and all that stuff, the main terminal structure will be built probably as part of phase 1. We'll shell out to put in equipment later for phase two, bag claim units, ticket counters, but the actual building itself would probably be right-sized to handle both, as well as you mentioned, the additional gates will be put on the end. So a lot of the traffic's going to be coming airside, shouldn't be. And the fact that we're designing both at the same time really helps eliminate any conflicts.
Okay, good. Any questions at all at this point, or? All right, we'll go ahead and move forward then. Thank you. Mr.
Okay, thank you. Another project we have been working hard on in order to get you more detailed information is the expansion of our rental car areas. The rental car operations here at RSW have four main components: the service area, where car rental agencies change oil and tires, fix dents, do minor repairs, as well as store cars during our high volume season. That area is currently located on the north side of the airport. The customer service building, where customers rent cars in front of the parking garage. The ready return area, the area in the lower level of the garage where customers pick up or drop off their vehicle. And the QTA, the quick turnaround area, behind the garage where returned cars are cleaned and fueled by rental car agencies and then put back in line. So the existing service area is on the north side of the airport. Not the best place for our rental car companies, their operations, since they have to shuttle all these vehicles from the north side to the south side of the runway, costing them time, shuttle drivers, fuel, and mileage. And not the best place for the Port Authority either, since a vehicle service yard doesn't really go with our vision of Skyplex, that area of the north of the runway, very high-end development. So as identified in our master plan, we're proposing to move the service area to the south side of the runway, closer to the main terminal operations and the rental car operations in the garage, saving the rental car agencies a lot of time and money, which also translate to better service for our passengers. In addition, this is the current rental car operation in lower level and behind the garage. To accommodate our visiting passengers, the rental car agencies would like to expand the rental ready return and QT areas behind the garage. That expansion eats into a loss of about 1,450 spaces of our long-term parking lot. So to offset this loss, we're proposing to add another level to the garage, which will add the lost 1,450 spaces back for our passengers. The early estimated cost for this is around $210 million, and the planned funding source is a customer facility charge, or CFC, a user fee charged to arriving passengers added to the rental car contract. Virtually all airports in the U.S. Have a CFC currently to pay for similar type projects, and they range from about $9 per transaction day to $2 in the low end per transaction day. RSW had a CFC when we built the current rental car facilities back in 2005, and it was sunset once the debt for those facilities was paid off. We think a CFC between $4 and $5 would be needed to fund the project, which is below average for the U.S. and average for airports in Florida. The next steps would be to work with the Attorney's Office to prepare a draft ordinance that would come to the board through a public hearing. It's important that we begin collecting the CFCs so that we can begin the design of the new improvements. Be happy to answer any questions on that one.
Commissioners, any questions on that project? Yeah, Mr. Andres.
How will the fees be adjusted for the 1,450 spaces that are out, the parking spaces that are going to be eliminated, and then now they'd be parking in the garage? Will there be a difference in parking rate?
We don't know that yet.
Okay.
We don't know that yet. We are going to be looking at, you want to take it, Ben?
Yes, sorry,
Okay, go
Mr. Chair,
ahead.
yeah. So the replacement of those 1,450 spaces are really gonna be replaced in a garage environment. So they'll be the same types, the same rates that we use in the garage, if you will.
Okay.
So, any adjustments that we make to the garage in the future, if any, they will be those rates. They won't be the long-term rates that are currently being charged, the long-term surface rates. So it will be, they will become short-term rates, if you will.
So we'll
Just
be
like
able
the
to
rates that we
generate
have
more
now.
revenue than those spaces are generating currently.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Real quick, some of the questions that I had when we got a chance to discuss this one-on-one in my briefing was, so talk to me about the customer facility charge. I mean, certainly anytime you're adding a new charge or new fee, you want to understand who that's going to affect and how that's going to affect them. So this is a customer facility charge of $4 to $5 per transaction day on rental cars. who's the typical customer that's renting a car at the airport? Would it be a resident here, or would it be somebody who's visiting here from out of town?
So typically, it's the person arriving at the airport who's renting the vehicles. I would say local people that are renting vehicles, they will rent vehicles at rental car facilities off airport. They're not going to come to the airport necessarily to do that. And even if they did, they can sign a waiver saying that I didn't come through the airport, and then they don't have to pay the fee. There's provisions in the agreements for that. So these are users of the airport that pay the fee. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it does, because it was one of the things that helped me understand. So the way this is going to work is users of the airport, typically people who are visiting from out of the area, are going to help us basically pay for the expansion of the garage, which then makes room for the rental cars to have a better experience, and
Yes.
so ultimately they'll get a benefit from it as well, the rental car companies and the rental car passengers too. So, all right, any further questions about that fee and how that's going to work?
And Mr. Chair, if I may, there will be further discussions, obviously, that we can have, because there's public hearings and then obviously the implementation of the ordinance and all that stuff. So this is the first, if you will, conversation that we're having with you, and basically we'll come forward a few different times to the board to discuss this again. So this isn't like the only time you're going to have the opportunity to discuss it.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Chris.
Just for clarification, we have a customer facility charge now, right?
No, sir.
We don't?
No.
This is a new thing?
We had one when we built the terminal complex that we're in today. We collected all of the revenues that we needed to pay the debt that was issued for that. And which is the same way we will handle this. It's not going to be a forever fee. It's
Almost
going to be
like a toll bridge when it's paid
it's going to
for,
be
you
it's
quit.
going to be a fee that we leverage the revenues to pay debt, and then once the debt's paid for,
Gotcha.
the fee's not
Okay, thanks.
necessary unless there's new facilities that need to be built.
That helps
at that
to
time.
understand that.
Yeah.
Good question. All right, thank you. All right, thanks,
Okay.
Mr. Fisher.
All right. So continuing on, now to touch on some other, the larger projects in our CIP. The board has selected a firm to design a new public safety building for our police department. We're currently doing some more due diligence with the consultant and APD to right-size the facility, and we'll plan to have a design contract come to you soon for approval. We also have a list of other APD requested safety and security projects we're looking into to include them, roll them into other ongoing projects, or potentially roll them into the future years of our overall CIP. Today, the board selected a consultant to design the pavement rehab for runway 624. With that approval, we'll be working to bring phased design contracts to you very soon for the runway rehab project. We've been working with U.S. Customs and Border Protection to upgrade our current federal inspection station. The improvements are planned to be split into two projects. Project 1 will upgrade security systems and help CBP better process visitors. And since the FIS is the first impression of Southwest Florida for our international arriving guests, Project 2 will refresh the FIS area with new restrooms, carpet, technologies, and fixtures to make it a more pleasant passenger experience. And we need to upgrade our outbound automated baggage handling system that screens all bags before they're loaded onto a plane. New Concourse C will tie into the existing system and add overall system capacity for our bag system. But additional improvements and upgraded technology are still needed to make it a better, stronger, faster system. It's a critical system for our airport that we need to stay on top of. And as identified, and you've heard as part of our ongoing master plan update, our maintenance group needs to expand their operations. So we'll be starting to plan a new consolidated facility that will connect the two main maintenance areas on the north side of the airport and bring a lot of maintenance functions scattered around the airport to work out of one location. And along with the terminal expansion under construction and new Concourse C, we do have a plan to upgrade some of our existing Concourse hold room seating, as well as refurb the restrooms, the rest of the restrooms that aren't touched by existing projects, bringing them up to match the new facility. So definitely a better passenger experience. So those are some highlights of the CIP. Unless there's any questions up to now, I'll bring up Brian to talk about funding.
Any further questions? Yeah, Commissioner Sandell?
One thing that we didn't address here is forecast for a second runway.
Mhm.
Where is that in the scope of everything we're talking about? I mean, we had an unfortunate instance this year with, get the airport shut down. We're doing a workaround for that as we discussed and so on and so forth, but as we continue to increase, we can't afford to be shut down for one reason or another.
Just the parallel runway is primarily driven by capacity from FAA's regulations. And, as the master plan identified, it's really not needed to 2043. We have all the land. We've done the site prep design. We have secured all permits. We're ready to design a runway. The problem is it's a very expensive effort without grant funds, and FAA won't give us any grant funds until it meets those capacity thresholds.
Okay.
So we're talking well into the 2030s before they would even consider any eligibility of federal grants or passenger facility charges to help the runway. So our effort from now until that point is keep our permits live, don't let those expire, and then keep looking at it as traffic increases.
Thank you. I'm gonna be 75 this year. I just want to see this happen in my life.
All right, Brian?
Excuse me, I just have a couple of slides here, and then we were, so Mark threw some big numbers at you. So it's 1.7 billion for RSW. We do have a solid business plan, a solid business model. The funding plans have different sources, the FAA, FDOT, PFC, passenger facility charges. We're going to do some pay-go as well as leverage. We issued PFC debt for the terminal expansion. The CFC for that one project of 210 million. We have other grants and also general airport revenue bonds, which are called GARBs. So we absolutely can't afford it, but it's a lot. But we're fortunate that we have the funding for it. And then at Page Field, same thing. It's 79 million, and the funding there is pretty much two sources: the FAA and the state, as well as us. So we've got a solid plan to fund these projects. So we feel real good about it. If there's any questions, we'll wrap it up.
The new flight school out there, I visited it, actually flew the train, there was a lot of fun, so on and so forth, but does that have any real effect? I don't know how many airplanes they're gonna have within the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years of talking about aircraft. Does that have any effect, negative capacity, on airport functions itself?
On I'm not sure your question. ATP, the new flight school, does it have an effect on?
I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
we've
just
got
didn't-
some flight schools, we've got increased activity, there's a demand for pilots, so the training cycle is gonna continue. I'm just wondering, with that increased frequency of use at Page, if it's gonna be an issue for us.
No, I don't think so. Actually, I think it's will prove to be a benefit and a value added and better utilization of our assets over there and help us grow, and fuel some of our capital improvement. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
That's all we have.
Yeah, Chairman, if I may. In the briefing the other day, I asked some questions about how we select our contractors, how we select, or how we select our CMs. And to be honest, it's kind of bothered me. I thought about it a lot since, and I would just like to get it out there that I think in the future, I would like you guys to rebrief me a little bit more about our process. So that way I have a better understanding of it, and I just didn't feel like I had a good enough understanding of it the other day. So I think in the months coming, I'd like to discuss that with y'all.
Oh, absolutely.
A little bit more detail if we could.
Yep.
So I can get a better grasp of the decisions, we're making
Absolutely.
as a board. So I just wanted to make sure we got that out there today.
Yeah, we'll set that up.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Any comments from the Special Management Committee at all on the material we saw in the workshop?
Good job. Good job. And I really want to thank them for the oversized, so we don't have to get our reading glasses on.
I still need them, unfortunately, but.
Lots of,
Next time.
well, I think, and the renderings are very helpful too, because they help you envision what it's gonna look
Yeah.
like.
Absolutely. Right.
You know, I think the important thing about the work we've done today and the work that they did to put this together is, you know, it's no secret the area is growing. You know, pre-hurricane, we saw like 25,000 people move to the area in a 12-month period. And it doesn't appear that the hurricane has slowed the growth of the area down at all. In fact, it may have brought some attention to the area that now has encouraged more investment and more people to look at our area too. So in order to have infrastructure, and the airport is certainly part of that infrastructure that is sized appropriately for the growing population. I mean, I think having a robust capital improvement plan like this one is important. You know, the hard part is paying for it. You know, sometimes you have to pay for it in ways that, you know, it can cause you to raise fees and things like that. But as long as you can show people that they really are getting some benefit for the extra money that they're paying, I think, you know, that's always the goal there. So.
Mr. Chairman, there's
Yeah.
one thing that when we spend $1.7 billion here,
Mhm.
it multiplies into this county into 15 billion
Yeah.
of the multiplier effect of the velocity of money. I mean, it's just incalculable how important this thing is to the overall community.
Well, right now, we're generating almost $4 billion of economic activity in the community annually, so that's.
9 billion.
Yeah, 9 billion.
Oh, is it 9 billion now?
The airport's 9 billion.
Oh, wow.
And I,
Started as 4.
I do think it's important to continue to send the message that our residents, our taxpayers don't pay a dime to this, right?
Yeah, no property taxes.
It's all generated here.
Yeah.
And that sometimes gets lost when they see this and their needs out there, and especially with the hurricane, that will probably rise up again, that
Absolutely.
conversation.
It's a great point.
Really important.
A really good point. All right. Well, with that then, if there are no further comments and no more business before us, then we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you all. Great meeting
Thank
today.
you.
Thanks, everybody.